guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking about OCD myths and debunking them. There are so many myths surrounding OCD, and these myths really increase the stigma around it because people don't actually understand what it is. So I'm just going to debunk some of the main myths people have around it. I'm going to start the video with what OCD is. Basically, OCD is a shortened term for obsessive compulsive disorder, and it involves really two parts. So the first part is the obsessions, which is basically a distressing thought, doing harm to yourself, doing harm to your family, something bad happening to your family or your friends, or you doing an illegal act or something like that. And then the second part of this is compulsions. So compulsions generally tend to help control that thought. So compulsions are repetitive actions, so say it's tapping, checking things a certain amount of times, blinking, and other times it can be more intense things, so it could be avoiding certain like places, so you might not want to go that certain place because you might think, oh, if I go there something bad will happen to someone, or possibly you have to take a certain route somewhere which could be a bit longer. So it can just be a bit of disturbance in daily life. It can be quite annoying, and these things often are very temporarily. But say if you don't do the compulsion, then things can get worse. So then the intrusive thought may get worse. You might have, if you have anxiety, you could also have a panic attack because you know, you're getting distressed because you think, oh, I've not done this, so this is going to happen. And then with compulsions, basically, they often don't actually link to the intrusive thought. So the intrusive thought could be, oh, harm is going to happen to my family if, I don't know, they're in a car and something could happen to them. And then I may have to take a certain route, like a walking route to like my lecture or something, or I may have to drink out of my cup a certain amount of times in a go or something like that. Like, there's often no correlation, which makes it very confusing. So I know like the thoughts, the compulsions, I think a lot of the time I know it's irrational. I know like, oh, this actually isn't going to impact it, but then my head's also like, it will impact it. And it can be really, really scary. It can be really like confusing, scary, and very distressing and debilitating. The about OCD is that people with OCD like things neat. Oh, I'm so OCD because I like my post-it notes in a certain colour, I like my gel pens in like a rainbow order. It's not OCD, like that's just not what it is. OCD is not about being neat, because sometimes with OCD you can like things be a little unorganised but organised in your mind. So a compulsion might be like, you have to put these in a certain order, but that order might not look, you know, pleasant, might not look satisfying. So people when they think about OCD, they think of those like Twitter accounts that are like OCD vids, and they're basically like satisfying videos like with sand cutting, or like new ones which are soap cutting, and soap cutting is so stressful for me. I hate those videos so much because all I can think is like they're just gonna cut their finger, and I get really stressed. And then when I watch them I think, oh, if they don't cut it a certain way or certain direction, like it can be quite bad for me, so I tend to avoid those videos. I do think it evolves around cleanliness, and there is some aspects about OCD that is around cleanliness. So there are basically a few types of OCD, and one of them is contamination. This may involve hand washing rituals. So if they hand wash a lot, if they hand wash to the point where their hands are dry and like can get cracked, and it can be quite like really painful when people go through that, and that can be one type of OCD. But that's only one type of OCD, so there are many other types. So we also have checking, where people have to check things like car doors, locks, symmetry, people like things in a certain order, intrusive thoughts like having to do certain rituals, as well as hoarding and stuff like that. Another thing people seem to think with OCD is that it can be obvious if someone has OCD, and a lot of the times you cannot tell if someone has OCD because people may hide them, people are quite subtle with how they deal with them. The compulsions may involve general normal activities. They may just do them a few more times, or while they're doing them in their head they may be counting. Sometimes people in their head are just counting. So like, it's not always obvious when someone has OCD. You cannot tell if someone has a mental illness. Like, you can't tell if someone's anorexic because a body type is not anorexia, that's the thing. And you can't tell if someone has depression because someone may be happy and smiling and have depression. And there's all these other mental illnesses, so someone can still have anxiety and still go outside, like, and still go to public events. It might just be more difficult, and it's not always obvious if someone's suffering. So the best thing to do is always just, you know, check if someone's okay, and just never assume what someone's going through. Myth is that people think that people with OCD are weak-minded, and basically they just need to, you know, get over it. So this is similar with many other mental illnesses. People are like, you know, just face your fears, just be happy, just eat, and all that stuff, and it's never ever that simple. So I'm gonna go back to the hand washing thing. If someone hand washes a lot, someone could just be like, stop hand washing, you know your hands are clean. And it's like, that doesn't help at all. I need to check a car door a certain amount of times, and then someone could be like, you know it's locked, you can see it's locked, why are you still checking? Like, just move on. It's like, it's never that simple. I'm checking a certain amount of times because what happens if it's undone? Like, what happens if this rare chance I stop doing my compulsion and something happens? The final one I want to focus on with OCD is the obsession part. So some people think because it involves you know, obsessions, people might become obsessed, people may become stalkers, maybe quite creepy and weird and stuff like that, or may have an obsession with a certain band, a certain hobby, a certain thing, and be like, or collecting or something. And so people might actually have quite a harmful view of people with OCD, because there are some types of OCD where people have very, very distressive thoughts. So this is really, really serious. Like, people can have thoughts about killing people or doing something illegal, another act, something really, really horrible. And people aren't going to do this act, but they have this fear that they're going to do this act. So people may do the compulsions in order to combat this, because people aren't bad. People with OCD aren't bad. They aren't terrible people. They are just normal people. They just have an illness. And it doesn't mean they're going to hurt someone. It doesn't mean something like that. But they may have those thoughts. So people can think, oh, people with OCD are dangerous. People with OCD, like, just, you know, and it's never like that. People aren't going to commit these acts, and it's really horrible to see some people when they're starting to understand OCD and this is what they think of them, they think a very negative view of them, but it's not like that. People aren't going to do these acts. It's very distressing for someone to think they may even commit these acts when they won't. It can be a horrible, horrible thought, and people do these compulsions in order to combat this, and it's a really difficult topic when you're talking about this aspect of OCD. So with OCD, talk about the compulsions, it's not hard, but talking about the as much, because with compulsions, generally they are, for some people at least, just checking, not doing anything harmful to yourself. It depends, but it always depends. But with these intrusive thoughts, it's really hard. It's really hard to talk about, because people, when you start talking about these like quite scary intrusive thoughts, people have a very negative view of you. Then people are like, yeah, I might avoid her because she's a bit creepy, she's a bit weird, she is gonna do something and I don't want to be involved in that. If she doesn't tap that a number of times, she's gonna do something terrible. It's like, that's not what it is, and it's hard to explain for someone that just doesn't get it, but that's just not what it is. Just take my word on it, trust me, people aren't going to commit these acts. People just have the thoughts they will, and there's completely different things between having the thought of doing something and actually doing something. So people with OCD are normal people. They're just nice, lovely people. Most people, they're just like normal people, you know, like some people aren't nice, some people are, but people aren't going to commit these acts. So another final point is just, please don't have a negative view about people with OCD just because of what you've read, just because you might think they may do something because they have said something, but that's not what they mean, you know? That's just my final point of this, and I just want you to know, like, please don't judge people with mental illness, whether it be OCD, whether it be depression, whether it be anything. Just please try to keep an open mind. If you've enjoyed today's video, I hope it, you know, you may have had some myths about OCD, you may have thought it's a certain thing when it's not, and I hope this video sort of explained that it's not that. It's more, you know, it's a mental illness, it's debilitating, it's distressing and stuff like that. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that stuff, and if you want to see any more videos, please recommend them on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. I'll leave the link or my like usernames in the description of like the video down there.